Welcome to Digital Discourse.
So, back in 2014, Nintendo unveiled the new Legend of Zelda game coming out for the Wii U. And then, we haven't heard anything about that for good 2 years. I mean, they threw us a couple bones at the Game Awards and such, but this is the first solid piece of understanding we've had about the game that Nintendo's given us.
Yeah, we've also got a trailer now, right?
Yeah, we finally have a trailer. Just at E3 2016, they finally released a trailer. I mean, that's something after 2 years.
So actually, I think the first thing we should talk about is the art style. So, the Legend of Zelda series has seen many different, art styles over the years. We have the Toon Link, we have, of course, the 8-bit era, 16-bit, all that stuff, I guess they're trying to make it more and more detailed, and then they finally get that with Twilight Princess, and then they go back and they're like, maybe that's not the best thing. And in this Zelda game, it seems to be looking like a kind of a cartoonish. I mean, it doesn't look like Twilight Princess. If no. It's more of like a Skyward Sword where it's like it's realistic enough, but it's not to the point where it's they're trying to make it look like it's real.
Yeah, I like the more cartoony art style. It's not totally cartoony, but it's like Skyward Sword, and you have the like the realistic kind of figures and models of that, combined with like the shell shading of Wind Waker and everything.
Yeah.
And that together, it looks like Breath of the Wild. And I'm very pleased with the art style.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I think it gives you that. It doesn't look too complicated, and where it's like too complicated for the Wii U or what the NX or whatever. That they said it's also going to be released on that too. They were planning on doing both.
Everyone knew that though. I mean,
we
didn't really need E3 to tell us.
Nintendo's basically been like, all right, we have the Wii U, we're going to get a Zelda game out for it, and then they're like, well, it's taken a little longer than expected.
Yeah.
It seems like Nintendo's been doing this a lot recently, where they go ahead and they say this game's coming out, and then like, wait, we're gonna need some more time. Then they eventually drag it out a few years, and then we get the game, and then I mean, it's always good. I guess that's better than releasing some half crap game. So.
And after 2 years, you should be expecting a very quality game.
So my first reaction to Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild was kind of I wasn't very like, oh my god, this is a new Zelda, this is insane, this is amazing. It wasn't, I could actually say that Link Between Worlds was actually, I was more excited for that, because I loved Link to the Past, and then I saw that and I'm like, wow, it's like Link to the Past, but it's, it was kind of a half 3D, you're just a top-down, but everything looked modern art style, it was really cool like that. I was really excited for that. This game, it just seems like, alright, it's another Zelda game. At first, I was kind of just, hoping for some more. I didn't really, the trailer itself didn't really do the game much justice, at least I think.
That's interesting. So, the vast majority of the reactions that I've seen on Twitter, or YouTubers reacting, was very positive, and clearly you don't necessarily demonstrate that level of excitement for the game.
No, I mean, from the trailer itself, no. It didn't really get me super excited. I mean, we already knew the new Zelda game was coming. It was about what I expected. They're going to show Link, and they're going to show the world, that kind of stuff.
See, I was definitely, when I saw the trailer, Reggie's talking and everything, and then bam, we finally get the first look at the huge open world and everything that they've been boasting about. Like, that's the new game's main thing. It's open world aspect. Yeah. And I was more than pleased with what I saw. They said what they showed on the trailer and what they showed in the Treehouse event was 2% of the entire map. So
yeah, when you think about that, when you consider that, it makes that seem very impressive. I mean, if they're counting off in the distance, I doubt it, because that's But I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with this whole open world, because we've had people consider Zelda's open world before, but if they were saying, we've actually had Shigeru Miyamoto say something like he doesn't want people to use the term open world, correct?
Yeah.
He said things like that. So how do you think this game is going to differ from other Zelda games in terms of its open worldedness, or however you want to say that?
Well, I mean, clearly they went for the open world aspect with Wind Waker. I mean, the GameCube obviously had to have some sort of boundaries, and I bet this game is guaranteed to have some sort of boundaries, even though it makes it... Their goal is to make it seem like they don't have those boundaries by making it...
similar to... you can even say a game like Minecraft. You'd think the worlds are endless. They're not actually endless. They're just extremely big. Mm-hmm. And, that's really what you can do. And yeah, like you said with Wind Waker, that game seemed like it was such a vast world. And I love that about the game, how you could just explore forever, and you just, you know, I mean, you could look at the book and you could say, oh, this island's here, this island's here. But if you just go away with looking up anything about it, it's truly like you get that awesome sense of exploration where you're like, oh, everything's filled with something cool and something useful to do, and you can sail here, do this and that. And I'm hoping we get a similar feel in this new Zelda game.
I think that'll be the case. Because with the rock climbing aspect, the new thing, you can... I've heard a lot of people say that have actually played the demo and everything, that from playing like past Zelda games, they didn't think they could necessarily climb to a certain point or anything, but they really felt like the boundaries were actually broken, because you can pretty much go to wherever you want with the rock climbing aspect.
Oh yeah.
There's no like wall. I'm sure there will be walls that will be too high to climb, but walls that you wouldn't necessarily think that would be
oh yeah,
achievable to get on top. You can do that now.
Yeah, there was that amazing aspect, at least about, I mean, Ocarina of Time, you could really see that in, is where you see Death Mountain, you see a volcano. You know, in a lot of games, it'd be like, oh, that's just part of the background. But in that game, you know, you see something, you can actually go there, and then you see in the distance, you're like, I wonder what that is. And you go over there, and you're like, wow, I can actually access this area. That's so cool. How you can really explore every area of the map, and that's something that I see that Zelda games are known for, as opposed to other games where they might have these fancy backgrounds, or you know, they might boast this and this, but they don't really have all the content. Not every area is interesting, and that's where Zelda seems to really thrive as a series.
Yeah. That's actually one of the concerns I have for the game. You said you like the big world and everything, but you're not they're all interesting, you know, the openness of the world.
Oh yes, if they make it too vast, or they're trying to just make it this, you know.
Yeah. So what I saw with the Treehouse demo and the trailer and everything, the world's huge. Obviously, we only saw 2%, and that 2% was ginormous. That 2% was a lot of open land and mountains. I mean, the landscapes were interesting, but there weren't necessarily a lot of buildings. I know they had to cut out some buildings for probably some characters too, for the sake of showing off the game. Really, they don't want to give out everything just yet. We saw just a lot of macablins or goblins. I don't know what they're called.
Yeah,
enemies.
Yeah, just the basic low enemies, like.
Yeah, but I saw a lot of just landscape. There were some interesting things, but you could explore a lot of things too. But that's from the 2%, it looked fairly interesting. That's kind of my fear. If I wonder if the other 98% is going to be just bland, just normal plain landscapes, because Twilight.
Oh, yes, that actually goes to something about Wind Waker, where Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, you know, there have been complaints about, you know, you just have to sail and sail forever, and it takes up so much of the game. And you know, in the Wii U version, the Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, they give you the fast sail, and so you can actually bypass all that. So I was wondering if the world is truly going to be so vast, are they going to give you any alternate methods of travel, or are they going to make you gallop across the whole land? You know,
they better.
I mean, some of that sometimes is just fun, how being tedious like that, but it really depends if you like that kind of thing or not. And you said about the being blank. One good comparison to this is, I don't know if you've heard of the game Rust.
No.
I know it's in early access on Steam right now, and it's kind of a survival game. The worlds are pretty big from what I've seen, and I've actually played this game. But it seems like there's so much of the world that's just vast. I mean, it's good looking landscape, but it's just there, and you just go across it, and you're like, okay, it gets so boring just walking and walking without much to see. So I'm hoping, as to finish this whole point up, you know, that Nintendo will certainly, you know, put a lot of effort into making the whole world interesting and not just little parts with really bland areas in between.
Yeah, I don't want it to be like Twilight Princess's Hyrule Field. It was a lot of nothing. It was big, but it was a lot of nothing, to be honest.
I mean, I think a lot of the Hyrule Fields, I mean, if you look at Ocarina of Time, that was it was pretty big, and it was just a lot of running. I mean, sometimes you go across the whole field because you have to go somewhere if you don't have your horse yet. I mean, it'll turn from night to day or whatever before you get somewhere, and then you like go into Hyrule Castle, and then it's daytime, and then it turns to night, and you're like, well, there goes the draw break. Then we have to wait outside and fight these guys and wait again, and it was, that part could be pretty bad. But as I said, I'm sure there's gonna be a horse.
Yeah,
there is a horse. That's it.
We've already seen the horse.
Yeah, so that's gonna hopefully we'll see the travel speed.
I want it to be like Link to the Past or Link Between Worlds, where the worlds themselves, I mean, in that case, weren't very big, but they were stacked. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
there was
Oh, yeah.
something around every corner, and that's what I hope to see. Overall, pleased with the 2% that we saw. I hope that's not an issue with 98%.
Yeah, certainly.
So, another thing, they had weapons. It's kind of Minecraft-esque. You can get weapons from enemies or resources and use
that's very
to your
interesting.
advantage.
I mean, you could usually get like little, you could get like a, how do you say it, Deku, whatever, the sticks from Ocarina of Time and other games where you just get the sticks from the enemies. I mean, sure, you can hit your enemies with the sticks, but it wasn't really like a full-fledged weapon you get. It wasn't like each unique weapons from each character. It was just kind of like the stick comes from pretty much every enemy. You can use it, you can hit people with it, but then it will break. You can use it to light stuff. But that was really all the far that they got with it. And so how is that, how have they changed upon that sort of thing in Breath of the Wild?
Well, this time it's more kind of survival-esque. Things actually break. I know the Deku sticks would like tarnish after you have it on fire for too long.
Yeah.
But the weapons that you can get, there was a sword that breaks, a wooden sword that I saw one of the people in the treehouse pull. The weapons that the Macablins have, I think that's their name, the enemies, you can take those when they die, and then you can use it kind of like Wind Waker or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But you can also, there are so many weapons that I've seen, there's some skeleton enemy, where you kill a skeleton, like their arm flies off, and then you can, Link can take the arm and put it in his bag, and then you can see like the little fingers wiggling.
Oh, that's cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and so the weapons, they're actually weapons you can keep in your inventory and store them with you, and they're not just like as you were saying in Wind Waker. When you're at the what's it called, the place where you go from the cannon,
the fortress.
Forsaken Fortress.
Yeah.
There, and you can get the weapons from the spotlight people, and forgetting all their names.
Yeah.
And you can hit people with it, but you can't use any other items. You can't put it back in your bag.
You can store this stuff.
Yes, yeah, and so that seems to be a very promising feature, and definitely interested to check that out.
Yeah.
And another thing, this is kind of going off just the whole main, the whole console aspect of this. Do you think you'd upgrade to the NX solely to play the new Zelda game, or would you be fine with playing it on Wii U?
They said they're not gonna have any differences between the NX and the Wii U.
Now that right there, that makes it. I mean, that's.
But Nintendo has said a lot of kind of sketchy things before. I mean, I'm not gonna totally believe them when they say that the versions are absolutely identical.
Yeah.
I mean, the NX is obviously gonna be more powerful. Maybe when they say no differences, they mean I'm sure that they mean no gameplay difference. Yeah.
But the graphics are, the method of control can be different. I mean, we don't really know everything that's going to be in store in the NX, so that'll be interesting. I mean,
I'm sure maybe the graphics will be better, but I'm also sure that the game will run smoother on
the NX.
The game will run smoother on the NX.
Kind of like a similar thing to the 3DS Smash Bros. How the loading screens when you have the new 3DS, those just little things like that. I mean, I'm sure that's just to be expected. And you were saying,
and in the Wii U version that they show at E3, it's just a minor thing, but it's for such an open world game. You don't want to see off in the distance the mountains loading or anything. I could see a little bit of that with the Wii U version. Hopefully, all that will be eliminated in the NX version.
Yeah, that kind of ruins the sense of depth that you have in the game and the sense of realism. Where when you're looking off into the distance and then or imagine if you're running say Minecraft on really low settings and you can see all the chunks loading and it's that kind of ruins it because you don't feel like you're in the world. You feel like you're in a little some fake thing and you're running over here while it's going it just kind of ruins that. I mean, it's a minor thing, but it really does deteriorate the gaming experience.
There were also some instances where I saw in very high combat situations where there'd be explosions they'll try and explode something. There'd be just a little bit of lag.
Yep.
A minor annoyance, but something that they could probably easily polish in the NX version.
Oh yes, and another thing to bring up: has Nintendo said anything about multiplayer with this new Zelda in any way?
No. Don't think so.
And so that seems to follow the typical console Zelda, where it's all right, we're giving you a Zelda game, we're not giving you any multiplayer. I mean, we're giving you a full, in-depth, amazing typically amazing. Single player game that's going to be a great experience that you don't even need the multiplayer, and it still seems like an amazing full game. I mean, some games thrive off their multiplayer, but Zelda's never been a series to do that, except the mobile. I was going to say the console, the portable console. Zelda's games have always had some sort of multiplayer where they try to stretch the boundaries of like, what kind of weird multiplayer can we do? Almost like they're experimenting. They were doing the whole Four Swords edition for Link to the Past on the Game Boy Advance, which, I mean, I believe we had played that, at least somewhat.
Yeah, we played it in Triforce Heroes.
And that was interesting, but you never really got that full sense of immersion as you would into a regular Zelda game, because you were just playing, the gameplay was the number one thing there. The story was like just a back thing, whereas in Zelda single-player games, the story's been like on the front with gameplay, and they've both been together, whereas that just seemed like gameplay, you're really creating the stories as you go with your friends, you're throwing the other guy off something or that, and that just kind of makes the whole thing fun in that sense. But yeah, so it seems to follow the similar pattern as the rest of the home console Zeldas, just being a straight single player game, and that's about it there.
Yeah. And to answer your question, I probably, even if it means like the minor improvements, like the ending of the leg or the ending of the you see the mountains loading off in the distance, I wouldn't buy the NX in that, if that was all. I mean, it's probably a system seller for some, but there are a lot of other games that the NX is almost sure to have.
Oh, I mean, I hope they don't screw up the launch with the NX as they did with the Wii U. I mean, it was kind of debatable, but I think we can agree that Nintendo didn't do a very good job launching the Wii U.
Yeah,
they didn't do that.
I'll buy the NX not solely for Zelda NX, but Breath of the Wild, but for other reasons too.
Are you pretty much set on like, I'm going to get an NX when it comes out at some point?
Not right now, but
okay,
if my suspicions are confirmed, like if like Pikmin 4 is like a launch window game or a new Mario game or something, then I'd probably be sold.
Yeah, and for me, I haven't really been, as into Nintendo stuff as much recently as I used to be. I used to be super into it. I'm like, oh, they released a new game. How much money do I have? Do I have enough money to buy that game? I used to do that, and it was like, if this new console comes out, I'm getting this. I got the 3DS XL on day one. I saved up the entire summer to get that, and that was huge and everything. But now I've kind of grown out of that, and it's not like if Nintendo releases it, I'm buying it. It's more of a, if it's good, I'm going to buy it. I'm not going to waste any money on a dumb game just because it's a Nintendo game. I think that's a smart decision for anyone to make, and not just buy it just because it's a certain company. So they're really going to have to convince me with the NX. It's not just going to be a... here's the NX, it's a Nintendo, buy it. It's going to have to be, this is why you should buy it, and this is why it's better than buying anything else. And I already have a PC to game on, so they need to say, like, this is why you should buy this, because it offers a completely unique experience, in which Nintendo has been good at. They don't give the same experience as Sony, Microsoft's PC type thing. So that's always been good. And Legend of Zelda Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, if, as you were saying, it's just those little improvements, I don't agree that that's not a reason for me to get the new system for it. It might just be like and this is also on the NX. And if it has backwards compatibility, it'll be one of those things where, Nintendo has typically had backwards compatibility, at least with one of their consoles, except for the earlier ones. But the NX, let's just say, even if it runs on discs or a cartridge or whatever, I've heard different stuff from different people, but... different things from different people on that kind of thing, and other things, of course, because a lot of it's just speculation and filing patents and seeing what that all means. But I forgot what I was gonna say. Okay, we're gonna cut that.
Yeah, dude.
I was literally going somewhere with that, but I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh yeah. So if it's going to be. No, I know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say something about the backwards compatibility.
NX rant.
If they're making it backwards compatible, and they're going to have the game on both systems, like the Wii was GameCube compatible. Like, why would anyone buy the Wii version of Twilight Princess? Unless it really offered something more. Yeah. Because they can just plug the GameCube disc in and plug in their GameCube controller, and they can have literally the same game on the same system.
New control.
Exactly. Okay, so that's what I was going to say. And so, is the NX going to offer something so much better with the console itself that it's going to make you buy the NX version for the NX, assuming that, let's just assume it's going to be backwards compatible, which a lot of newer Nintendo consoles have been, and, why not just take the Wii U version of it and put it in that console, kind of like what you could do with Twilight Princess. You could take the GameCube one, plug it into your Wii, plug in a GameCube controller, and it's pretty much the same game, except Nintendo added the Wii Remote, which was the main selling point of, like, this is why you should have it on Wii, because you have the Wii Remote, this and that. I mean, whether you like that or not, that's what they were trying to do. And so that makes me curious if they're going to implement something like that, with the NX to improve Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, we'll see. So, another thing that we noticed with the game, I need to think of it actually. I just had it in my mind. Hang on.
Hey, what's the plot of the game, actually?
That's okay, yeah, that's what I was going to talk about. Alright, so another thing that I noticed when watching the trailer and watching the Treehouse members play it on the live stream, the game starts out, there's voice acting, so that's interesting. Presumably Zelda is talking to Link right at the beginning. Link's kind of in this large, kind of circular area. It's bluish, grayish. It looks like a cave, kind of, actually. And he's like naked to his underwear, and he's like emerging from water, and you hear voice acting. Presumably Zelda. I don't know. Maybe it's his some sort of fairy or something, or goddess. And then, Link's like naked in his underwear, and then he acquires clothing eventually and walks out into the grand open world, and he picks up I don't remember what the book's called, the book that allows him to do various like techniques, like the magnet trick or whatever. So the story is, we don't know yet. And so that's another concern I have for the game.
And that's a pretty big aspect of the game, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo, especially Miyamoto, has been shifting in the direction of more gameplay over story, which I don't agree with.
I mean, if you look at what happened to Luigi's Mansion, when...
yeah.
I mean, that kind of... I loved how it was such a one thing. I mean, he wanted to extend the gameplay, you said, so
yeah.
He changed it up, and I really... That change actually led me to not even finishing the game.
Yeah. I mean, Miyamoto's not, like, the primary, he's not the director of the game or anything, so... I hope that's not the case, and the concern I have for this game is that if you compare this to any other massive Zelda title, Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, you'll notice that it's more survival-based. You have this huge open world, gameplay looks great, but you don't necessarily get that sense of epicness, or you're like on a large quest to save the world or everything. And I'm sure part of that's because, it's an E3 trailer. They can't spoil everything for the game. They're holding back.
For a lot of things, we just need to wait, give it some more time. Yeah. And then all these details that we're speculating about right now will all get filled in eventually. Mm-hmm. And then once the game is released, we'll be able to play it and see what we think of it then.
Yeah, because I definitely want that massive quest. Like, you have a purpose, not just like at the beginning of Twilight Princess where you're just like... You're kind of like the hometown hero or whatever. I want that. I want Link in his Master Sword, like saving the world from evil and everything.
I'm sure you don't want just the same game, as we've had before. I mean, a lot of people say, I want Link, I want the Master Sword, I want killing Ganon, I want Zelda.
No.
But you also, I mean, sometimes, I'm not saying that you're not open to do it changing, but sometimes people tend to be like, oh, I wish it was like the old games. But then, if it was like the old games, people would complain, oh, it's just like the game before it, which is a huge complaint with games like Call of Duty or whatever. Like, oh, it's just like the other ones. And Zelda has never really gotten any criticism for that, but really the formula of the games are all the same, which is typical of games in the same series, of course. But, you don't want to change the game too much where people are like, oh, this is not Zelda anymore. I mean, you really have to stay within those boundaries, changing the game enough to make it feel fresh and new without going too far and turning it into a different game.
I just want that grand feel, like you're actually doing something. And they did Triforce Heroes. I mean, not your traditional Zelda game. Mm-hmm. They obviously didn't have this big quest. The story was stupid. It was the princess was cursed with wearing like an ugly outfit or something.
Oh yes.
Like, that's not what you want in a Zelda game.
I could not, like, if that was a single player thing, if it wasn't for the multiplayer, all that other stuff, it would have been like, Nintendo, did you really just do this?
So in this case, I think you have to have a great quest and a story.
This also goes back, I can relate this to Luigi's Mansion 2. Well, not 2 as in this 2 game, but it works perfectly, actually. they changed the game from like a darkish. I mean, sure, there was a little bit of a silly part in it, just because the ghosts were like, wow, you know, they have the faces, they're all like that. But the game never itself really felt like a silly game. But then with Luigi's Mansion 2 or Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, they made everything seem just like really you know, like all kiddie, and it was all like silly. It was like, oh, it didn't seem as scary or serious. And I mean, we were talking big about, we're like, oh, we should play this at night, it'll be really scary. And then it just turned into like this little silly game. And I was playing it, I'm like, you know, I've waited forever for this game. I don't think I really like it. I was trying to tell myself, no, it's a good game, but I couldn't really get there. And yes, that was because it wasn't that grand feeling that, you know, you feel like you're in this place alone. You know, it just felt like it was too comforting. And they can't really do that with Zelda games where they make them too comforting and they make you feel like, oh, everything's alright, everything's fine, because that kind of ruins the point of the game. The point of the game is that the world, something's bad going on in the world, you need to fix it. It's not meant to feel comforting. It's not a comfortable thing to go change and save the world.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to be the case, because you see Link in the huge world, he seems really isolated. Doesn't look comforting at all. And the music really hard. It's just kind of like little piano chords thrown in now and then. So
we haven't heard anything about the main theme, or you know.
There's a little one. There's a little one in the trailer, but it wasn't. It was.
We haven't heard like
serious.
Each game has their own. You know, you play the title screen or like this, or you know, the main part of each game. Assuming it's not just the regular Zelda theme. Each game has its own modified version of that, or it's completely its own thing. If you look at Wind Waker, the title screen, for example, that's like that. Where is that in any other Zelda game? That's like a completely new thing. So I'm also curious about the music. I mean, if the music is kind of just
they might not have it in the main field. They might just stick to those piano chords, make you feel isolated.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. You know, sometimes having a lack of music can also make you, depending on the mood of the music, or just like you know how the Shadow Temple in Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. It wasn't much like music. Same with like the Fire Temple. Those they felt kind of. It wasn't a ton of music. It was like some sounds, but there's some little melodies in there. But I think that really added to like the way that the dungeons felt. You know, whereas if imagine you putting Mario music into one of those things, it wouldn't give the that would completely destroy the experience of the whole the dungeon. And I think that's one thing that Zelda does amazingly. They combine the sound, the gameplay, the graphic style, everything to make the game just feel amazing. I mean, there's a perfect balance, or a near perfect balance. There's a certain way that you have to do that, and very few developers can actually get that correct and make it feel that way. I mean, it can still be a good game without that balance being correct, but it's certainly much better when it is.
Yeah. And so, lastly, this is my very last concern for the game. Obviously, not many. I'm very happy with how it looks. I cannot wait to play it, but I don't know if you saw this. This was in the Treehouse stream. There are these things called shrines. They're not dungeons. They're these like little mini dungeons that probably take about 10 minutes to complete, and you'll get some sort of reward at the end.
They had something like stuff like that in like Wind Waker when you had to get the Triforce shards, or you would go not like with the Triforce shards, but like you would find all those dungeons like on your way just because you were going around these areas. And like there's little tiny dungeons, like a little hole you'd go in Zelda, and there's a little boss guy, and you get something like similar to that.
These shrines had, you could tell they were in the trailer and on the live stream. But all four of them they were like really defined. Like these are the shrines. They're like these big entrances, not too big, but they're really defined. You could tell like, oh, this is a shrine, and it kind of has like blue glowing kind of appearance on like the stone, and then inside they all look the same. They all have that blue glowing feel, like a dark cave and everything.
I like it to feel unique. Like each thing, when you have mini dungeons like that, and then you go into each one and it feels unique. It makes the game feel like, wow, this is really high quality. This is insane. There's such a great amount of depth into it that even little tiny, it's almost like each little afterthought is even its own thing. And those are things, the little things like that can really make the game so much better, and they can really, make a game from a 9 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. Those are the things that really matter in that sense. Not just the main game. The core of the game is important, of course, probably the most important thing, but it doesn't really finish off the game like anything else can.
Yeah. And these shrines are they're not necessary. They're kind of more side quests, which I'm thankful for. But they said that there are going to be about 100 of them in the full game. and they look kind of bland. And if they're all going to be the same, which I assume they are, all 4 of those were the same in the trailer and on the E3 Treehouse live stream. I don't want to go through all 100 of those, even if it's just to seek out like to 100% the game and collect every item.
I've never been a fan of just going around tediously collecting things.
Yes,
just
it'll seem tedious. The challenges did look fun themselves, but 100 of those.
And if they're all unique, or even there were like different types, I could see. But if they're all the same, well, I'm sure they won't be all the same. Then, because in that case, it's just like, well, why even do this, you know?
Yeah.
So, is that about it?
Yeah, that's about it. Final thoughts.
Well, final thoughts. Well, once it's released and we get the full game, we're actually able to play it, which we will be playing it for you. And then we'll actually be able to, really go far in depth at every little thing. That's going to be awesome once we actually get to play, because a lot of this is just speculation, hoping they're going to do this, hoping they're going to do that. This is what they're going to do. They've said they might do this, Once we actually get the game, that's when all this can really be finalized, and we can really give, the solid opinions on every little thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, for right now, I think it looks promising, but we really just need to see the game itself, play the game itself, and we'll go from there pretty much.
Yep. Summarized concerns I have, too bland of an overworld, not just too much empty space. Seemed alright with the 2% that they showed, but hopefully it won't just look all bland for the rest of the game. Shrines, they don't look terribly exciting. They have fun little challenges, but they seem extremely repetitive and possibly even tedious. And I want that epic grand feel when you're playing Ocarina of Time. You enter each dungeon and it's just like wow, and you enter Ganon's castle and everything. You feel like you really have a purpose. You really want to save the world and everything.
Temple of Time, I think that especially.
And I'm probably on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably 8 out of 10. How excited I am. I can't wait till March, which if Nintendo sticks to their word, which who knows these days.
Yeah.
I can't wait to play it. So
you watch it be delayed for like the end of the NX's cycle. Oh, God.
It was supposed to come out in 2015, but
yeah, and we're pretty far past that now.
Only time will tell.
Yes. So thank you guys for watching Digital Discourse, and we'll see you guys next time.